Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to gather this daily conversation around all things COVID-19. On this series, we cover three crises: the health, financial, and inequality crises. We're always looking for ideas, guests, and theme suggestions. Please email me, sree@sree.net. Today is episode number 161. That's right, we've been live for 161 days, and every single day, not a break anywhere in between, no vacation, no weekends. And today we have a very special daytime episode. We are coming to you noon Eastern time if you're watching live, otherwise you're watching it anytime. And our topic today, meet GenderAvenger. Gina Glantz, the founder, is with us. Amber Coleman-Mortley, the social media manager. Alon Morgan, web designer and editor, are all with us today. GenderAvenger is a community that ensures women are represented in the public dialogue. Please check out GenderAvenger.com, and you'll meet them in just a minute. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree Sreenivasan. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting business. Our motto: don't cancel your event without talking to us. Don't even think of starting and planning your virtual event without talking to us. My email address is right here, sree@sree.net. We've done events for 50 people and 100,000 people. I bet your event is somewhere in between, and we can help you. Even if you don't hire us, we love geeking out about virtual events, so please contact us and let's talk. If you're visiting us for the first time, you may not know what this is. This is the Daily Global Show. In our first 150 episodes, we've had more than 1 million viewers, 105 million social impressions, 281 guests, 57 cities are where guests have come from, 16 countries. And our speakers have included the chief scientist of the World Health Organization, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. She was fantastic, along with the director of pandemics at the World Health Organization, Sylvia Bryant. Please check out our archives, youtube.com/Sreenet. And we're able to do this because of Scroll.in, one of India's leading news, information, and culture websites, which also has a brand new global footprint with Scroll.in/global. And we're able to do this because of my awesome producers, Rose Horowitz, who's at Rose Horowitz 31, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon, who is with us. They are both live tweeting and sharing and putting all this together. Please follow them and please connect with them. We're also able to do this because of our sponsors. Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, free certification, now available. Folks can take this and you get a free certificate, and you become one of more than 4,000 people who've taken this class. I learned a lot putting this together with my friend Linda Bernstein, and I know you will too. Please check out mrac.co/social. We're also grateful to Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. 20% off with the code SREE, SREE, to support people in need, support this show. Nunbelievable.com. Promotional consideration also provided by
Hotstar Premiere Nights. Watch the year's biggest blockbusters streaming straight to your screen, exclusively on Hotstar.
A newly married couple's life is jeopardized in the new thriller Khuda Hafiz, streaming straight to your screen. Please check out hotstar.com/US and use the code Sree2020 to get less than $4 a month subscription. Check that out, please. And our final sponsor, She's on Call, a fantastic show that I'm honored to be an executive producer of with my two friends, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. Every week they talk about health issues and COVID and much, much more. And they have two terrific doctors who join them. And you can check out this week's episode on She's on Call right now. Please check them out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and you can follow them. And the producers of this show, Vandana Menon and Rose Horowitz, are among the producers of that show with Julia Weeks and others. So are you now ready to talk about GenderAvenger and to meet the team? So let me tell you all about them and bring them on screen. Right now, you're going to meet Gina Glantz, Amber Coleman-Mortley, and Alon Morgan. GenderAvenger is a community that ensures women are represented in the public dialogue. Please tell us where you're watching from. Please share your stories. Tell us how your Tuesday is going. And let me say hello to the folks right now. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay.
Great to have you. That's Gina. That's Amber. And let me bring on you. I want you to introduce our third guest who's right here. So go ahead, Gina.
Oh, hi. You want me to introduce Alan?
Yes, there you go.
Hi, there's Alan. Alan is the very first person who I hired to join GenderAvenger, and the two of us did everything for almost 2 years. She's also from Saskatchewan.
Yep.
And so we have always been a virtual team. And personally, for me, she has educated me because Alan is non-binary, and I had to learn a lot at my age as to what that means and what it meant to her for us to add non-binary individuals into one of our tools.
And that's great. So my first question to all our guests is, how are you? How are you doing? How are you doing through this pandemic? So we'll start with Gina, Amber, and then Alon. So go ahead, Gina.
Well, I'm lucky. I'm in my apartment in New York City. I get to go outside 3 times a day because I have a dog that needs to be walked. I'm very lucky. I am healthy. My family is healthy. And we continuously try to figure out if there's some place we could go where we could socially distance and we could once again see our grandchildren.
And that, of course, is important. Now, I got to ask you about the painting behind you because it dominates that room. So let's take a look.
So this is a painting by a Native American artist, Frank Howell. And you may notice, or let me ask the people who are watching, do you think it is a man or a woman? I ask everyone who sees it, and I get different answers from different people. And when I met Frank Howell, he told me that was intentional, that this was an androgynous figure that he painted. And it was an anniversary present from my husband maybe 20 years ago. And it always occupies the biggest wall in any place we've ever lived.
All right, so that's great to have it. Now that you're reseated, if you can just tilt your laptop down a little bit, that would be great.
There you go.
And let's ask Amber the same question. How are you doing, Amber? This is not your first rodeo on this show. We are so pleased that you've been on the show before, and last time the room was a little bit more crowded.
Yes, so I'm doing great. I'm coming to you live from right outside Washington, D.C. The last time I saw you, Sree, I had 3 little people with me. I've been spending the time with my 12, 11, and 9-year-olds working on our podcast and preparing for remote learning in the fall and doing like homeschool type stuff for the summer so we don't forget all the great things and reading great books. So very fortunate to be here today, and I'm just so thankful to be with you in great company again.
And one of the things that you work on is the K-12 Better podcast.
Yes, Let's K-12 Better. Yeah, so Let's K-12 Better is a podcast that gets parents kind of talking about like all of the many different topics. Right now we have a COVID-19 and back to school series where we've had a family discussion, me and my kids, we've asked teachers who are also parents, a school board president, a director of health services, all kinds of questions about the things that they're grappling with as parents about to send their kids back to school in this moment. So hopefully people will check it out.
All right, then please do, everybody, check that out. And here's Alan. How are you, Alan? Tell us how you're doing, and you're in Saskatchewan, is that right?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm doing pretty well. I live next to one of the largest outdoor spaces in North America, so I get out regularly, and lower population, so it's a little safer. But yeah, pandemic lockdowns, quite a journey. I'll say that.
What is the place that we should know this? What is the name of that area that you said is the largest in North America?
I live in a city called Regina, Saskatchewan. It's spelled like the name Regina. And we've got our green space around our lake, and our bird sanctuary is larger than Central Park.
Is larger than, sorry?
Central Park in New York.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good to know. So let's start by talking about GenderAvenger, and first the name itself and the origin and how this all got started. Gina is going to explain, and then we'll talk about each of your roles and why people should pay attention to the work that GenderAvenger does. So Gina, please.
Great. I will tell you a short story of the sort of genesis of GenderAvenger. Happened when I happened to be teaching, well, non-academic, happened to be teaching at Harvard at the Kennedy School in 2012. And the Kennedy School, every 4 years, it brings in the presidential campaign leadership and reporters, and they talk about what happened over the course of the campaign. So it's very relevant to what we're living through today. And in the evening, the campaign managers and reporter are in the Kennedy School Forum, which is the big, prestigious place where heads of state and heads of corporations come, and should be a stage that is modeled for students because it is the public part of the day. Well, in 2012, Barack Obama's re-election, there were 5 white men on stage. Well, it just sent me around the bend. So I went on my personal Facebook page, and in those days, when you posted it, went to all your friends, and I said, skipping the quadrennial HKS presidential review. I'm tired of all white men all the time. Where's Glenn Eiffel? Where's Stephanie Cutter? Where's Beth Myers? All of whom I had seen during the day. Well, it got a very big response on Facebook. Well, that night, there was a blackout, and lo and behold, they had to cancel. So the next morning, I went back on my Facebook page and I said, God heard our plaintive cry. She turned off the lights and explained what happened, that the event had to be canceled. I not only got hundreds of likes, but dozens of comments. And because I have a very long career in politics, some of those comments came from people who were important to the Kennedy School. And I was rebuked. I received an email. How could you say this? It was very easy to respond. I responded by saying there were 5 white men on stage. So I got to thinking about this. I talked to a lot of young women my age, and discovered that this was something that was encountered all the time at conferences, at meetings. And if a woman said something, she was dismissed, she was disparaged, and she wasn't invited back. So fast forward, took me a little while. One day I woke up and said, GenderAvenger. That is the name I want to use to create an advocacy nonprofit that will expose what is happening to women's voices. And so that was really the beginning of it. And it was in 2015, after Alana and I had experimented with it for about a year, that we not only were incorporated, but received our IRS status. And ever since, we have been, as you see by the website, promoting individual action on the theory that If individual voices are amplified by a community of shared values, we can provoke change. And that's what we're all about.
And what a great job you and your team have done. GenderAvenger, just the name is fabulous. And many people may have stopped there, but you're constantly adding new features, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're in for a treat. For the next hour, we're going to be talking about various aspects of GenderAvenger and really about the fight for equality for women in this digital age. And if you're watching, please tag your friends. They can watch us later if they can't watch right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And please check out GenderAvenger.com and also follow the Twitter handle at GenderAvenger. And what I'm going to do now is just look at some of the people who are tuning in and say hello on what we call our global tour. Jonathan Borstein is watching from the East Village, which has something of a history of gender bending as well as gender avenging. And Jonathan has watched 161 straight episodes of this show. Every single episode, he's been on a couple himself. He's just fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here. Rajan is watching from Long Island. Stefan is watching from, he says he's a born and bred Greenwich villager now living in the burbs who says, go GenderAvenger. And Apollo is watching from Las Vegas. And thank you for being here. Ashok is watching from Kerala in India. Has anyone here been to India, the three guests? Gina has, so we got to get the others there as time will allow. And Lata says hello. We have a guest watching from Raleigh, North Carolina. And Rose is watching, our friend and producer. She's watching from Connecticut. So excited to see Gina Glantz, Mom of All Capes, and Alan Morgan of GenderAvenger here. I founded the hashtag Women to Follow after being inspired and actually angered by a post on GenderAvenger, a terrific website about lack of representation of women in social media. So there you go. The impact that you've all had is so widespread and so important. We've got someone watching in Dubai. And Rose says Vandana and Rose are live tweeting, and you see the hashtag we're using, and Vandana_Menon and Rose Horowitz. Sai says good evening to you all, because now, of course, it's nighttime in India. If you are in New York City, take the GenderAvenger no-manels pledge here at GenderAvenger. We'll talk about that. And Ron says hello from Dubai. Ron Thomas, great friend of the show. He hasn't been on this show yet, so we've got to get him here. And then Rachel Cooper says hello from the Upper West Side. Hi, Rachel. And Rachel is someone who programs a lot of events, including those at Asia Society. And she's always making sure it's as diverse as it can possibly be. Those of you watching, if you have some horror stories about all male panels or all anything panels that you couldn't stand, tell us and share it with our team. Let's go to Amber to hear about some of the ways in which GenderAvenger is trying new things, and also your own story, Amber. How did you get involved into this?
Yeah, so listen, women's empowerment is kind of a no-brainer for me. I identify as a cis woman, and so I do understand like having to speak up and like people not listening to you or people brushing you off. And so I was like, oh my God, GenderAvenger, that's so amazing. I'm Mom of All Capes. I feel like I'm a superhero. Why wouldn't I lend some of my superpowers to this amazing organization that is lifting up women's voices in all the public spaces and relying on women experts to also be a part of telling stories and like giving facts and information and being cited in research. So it was essentially a no-brainer, and I was like, I got to do this. I'm so thankful to be able to kind of stir the pot with their social media and be able to like call it fanning the flames of rage. And so encouraging people to shout out to us and let us know, all the things that they're seeing at conferences or in the media or hearing online or reading in books. And I make sure that I do my job to elevate that and say, you know what, you're absolutely right. Like, women often feel like when we speak out that we're crazy or we're emotional or we're blowing things out of proportion. And I think that it's just really great to have a community of people saying, you know what? No, your anger is valid and we are angry with you and we're going to get behind you on that. So there's that. That's why I'm a part of this I'd also say, the evolution of the time that I've been here in the short period of time, seeing how we've incorporated this element of intersectional feminism, right, where we are lifting up the voices of women of color as well. So we're not just saying women's voices need to be heard. We're saying, you know what, Black and non-Black women of color's voices are also important, and we have to count those, because if we don't count those, then we're not looking for those. So when you look at the tally, you'll see that there's an opportunity to, add in non-binary folks, which is awesome, and then also count the women of color in your tally as well, because we want to elevate that. We want to say we need diversity for real, like y'all. Let's do this.
All right, I'm feeling so fired up. Let's go to hear her journey as well.
Well, I came to GenderAvenger. I'm a web designer, and Gina and her co-founder at the time, Susan Askew, asked me if I would design their website, and we got along so famously, and we're so aligned with our values that it was easy to say yes when they asked me to stay on after, and I've been there since early 2014.
Yeah, that's great. And what is your focus?
At GenderAvenger?
Yes.
Well, I work on web design. I do the content editing. I help edit the copy, accounting.
And it's an overall advisor. Team. We have a tremendous team. Everybody has a voice in what GenderAvenger does every week and how it looks forward. And that has been its strength.
And that is so important. Folks, please share your stories about encountering all-male panels, and also your thoughts on the work that GenderAvenger is doing. I want to just share very quickly my own experience thinking about this topic. I have had a journey myself, because I was someone who didn't pay as much attention to the diversity issues as I could or should. And so this is what started as a Facebook post for me to talk about the importance of not having all male panels. This started as a promise to my daughter that I wouldn't appear on all male panels. And then I said I wouldn't speak on any all male panels. I mean, I wouldn't even watch any all male panels. That became something that I did in 2016. And these are all articles about my pledge and about this movement. And what is a shame about this, and I said this in several of the articles, and I said it there, you can see me on CNN pontificating about this, is that I said that women have been complaining about this forever, and when a handful of men say something, then suddenly everybody pays attention. And I was so horrified by that, even as I'm sitting there on CNN taking up a spot that a woman should have had. Talk to me a little bit about that, Gina, in terms of why is it that they weren't that this was not getting people weren't understanding this, and even the bias here of men saying the same thing that women have been saying. So the solution was in the question and the problem itself.
Sree, it's hard to imagine today that this is still going on. But when we began, I called up my co-founder and said, I'm going to do this. And she said, oh, Gina, you're exaggerating. 2 weeks later, she called up and said, I'm in. Once you are aware and you begin to watch through the gender balance lens in 2014, 15, 16, 17, you just become appalled at the paucity of women's voices. And so, is there a reason? Well, we live in a society that has been dominated by men in positions of power, and presence is power. And I think we as a culture define power by if you are on stage, if you are on air, and I'm sure if you have X number of followers on social media. And I just want to sort of fast forward to now, and an observation I made at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, where it appeared to me that during this crisis, there was a default to men as authorities, that it was men who were being seen as the experts on the epidemic. It was men who were being seen, as the experts around healthcare, and women were consistently portrayed as, the caregivers, but not as the experts. And I found that to be really disconcerting, because we had, I thought, improved over the years. And so I think we have to consistently point out when there are all male panels or all white panels, or where there are, men dominating those panels. And, let me say that, I think we are beginning to see attention being paid again to this issue. We've seen an uptick in our social media, Amber was telling me. And today, it seems to me, there are only two reasons why people would have a manel: stupidity or laziness. There are no excuses for this in today's world, to leave out, 50% of the voices, their perspective, their intelligence, their experience. And so, the struggle goes on, but I don't want to give the impression that GenderAvenger is only about the negative. We created stamps of approval so that we could reward organizations that, in fact, are paying attention and working toward gender and racial balance on their panels. And, for those people who are listening, we would love to get nominations from you. If you see a panel or a list or a festival where there are a minimum of 40% women, of whom 30% are women of color, we award a bronze stamp of approval. If it's 40% women of color, we award a silver stamp of approval. And if it's 50% women of color, we award a gold stamp of approval. And, we are following the Democratic and the Republican conventions. And we're going to award stamps or not award stamps, depending on their nightly speaker lineups. And last night, the Democrats actually earned a gold stamp.
So we'll come to that in just a second. I just want everyone to see this for a minute here, just to understand this. So this is the stamp that you can get for your event. 40% women, of which 50% are women of color. You get a gold, silver stamp of approval. 40+% women, 40% of whom are women of color, 40% women, and 30% are women of color. So this is something that you've done. I think that's really important. Do you ever worry that when you have this, if this takes off really well, then people are going to be content at, let's at least get the bronze star, and that's 30%, 40%, whatever those numbers are. And they say, okay, we've gotten, but do you think that was enough of a big step that you'd be happy if we even arrived there? Because we're a long way from there, right?
I think we created these tiers to be aspirational. And Personal Democracy Forum, which was a very large conference here in New York when we could have large conferences, displayed their bronze on stage and said from the stage, next year, we're going to reach for the gold. So it's like when people say to me, there are other, pledges. I said, there should be hundreds of pledges. There are billions of men out there who could sign these pledges. There is so much that can be done. So I'm not concerned that we will in some way be content.
Okay, good to know. Let's take a look at some of the comments, and then we'll go to our guests. Lots of comments coming in here. Vandana is quoting you. Today, there are only two reasons why people would have a manel: stupidity and laziness. There are no excuses. That should be on a t-shirt somewhere if it isn't already. Apollo, who's watching from Vegas, says, I'm sorry to cover up your faces. Go GenderAvengers. I find being an androgynous gay man, I've been ignored, and that people are more comfortable with me as an object rather than intellect or as an agent leading one's life. It's astonishing how vectors of one's identity can be used to ascribe doubt about your abilities, talents, and I found these affinities can be used to disregard you as being too much of a misfit. You aren't within the binary. What I've learned is being too beautiful is a problem with men, and it didn't come. The rest of it didn't come through from Facebook, but you understand the background there. Apollo is amazing. He's been a guest on the show talking about life in Vegas. He also talked about what it was like to be African American living in India and dealing with the police and life there in so many different ways. And everyone has a different story, and they have to experience it. And you can see that this conversation is bringing out comments in Apollo that we have not discussed on this show before, even though Apollo is a regular visitor on this show. A Facebook user says, can't stay longer today, but I'll be back. Love what you're doing on The Daily Show, and this one in particular. Thank you. You're getting support from Andhra Pradesh in southern India. And Ron Thomas is listening in bed. Ron, I have seen people do business calls in bed as part of their work. We've had students who have a lump next to them and saying shh during classes. So we've seen everything in this during the pandemic. Let's see here. Rajan says, sorry again to cover your faces. One of the major precipitating events of my journey from being a born-again Christian to being a Muslim revert was when the Southern Baptist Convention stated in the late 90s that women should be disallowed from teaching men. I had been brought up in a church where I had many female Sunday school teachers, and both sides of my Indonesian Filipino family had many strong, educated women. I do not have children of my own, but I want my goddaughter, Kayla, and other women in my family. Again, that didn't make it through, but you can see that online. Thank you for sharing, Rajan and Apollo. Let me go to Amber. Your responses to what you've heard so far, and then we'll ask Alon.
Yeah, so I think it's great. I think men have a huge role to play in all of this. We're not looking for many times online when we see all male panels or a manel, they're like, oh, we have a women's event, like following it up, and it's like, no, dude, we're looking for like equity across the board. We want to be interwoven into the mix. It's not just about the consolation prize women panel of women experts. And so, I really appreciate these comments by, our friends who have shared. I think, again, men have a big role in that. If you are invited to speak and you see that there are no women or no non-binary folks who've been asked to join, you need to email and say, hey, y'all, this isn't cutting it, right? I know a woman expert, or I know where I can get a woman expert to either take my place or to join this to make it more diverse. The point here is we want a group of very different people providing a holistic approach to what the topic is. We do not want to just separate everybody out. And so thank you guys for being allies. I want to continue to push you guys to do more. Because use your power for good. That's what being a gender avenger is all about.
And you're saying that men can be gender avengers too?
Yes, of course, they better, right? We need y'all.
I love it. Alon, go ahead, please. Sorry, you're muted.
There's construction going on in my building, so I've been muting in between.
Thank you.
If you're feeling, that's what it is. Just speaking to what Amber was just saying about we need men. We need men involved because for eons, women have been cast into private spaces and men have been allowed public spaces. And so when women are given women-only rooms to speak in or women-only conferences, that's essentially a private space for women. And our voices are lost to the larger arena. So it's so important that we're on those panels, and we need men speaking up and saying, and passing the mic and saying, I know you asked me, but I really want this to be a successful panel. And to be a successful panel and to be really successful on any topic, you need people of color. You need women. You need people from the LGBTQ plus spectrum. And you need men. We need all of us together to make this world as great as it can be. And that stands in every arena, whether it's an engineering conference or tech or dentistry. It's better when women and people of other genders are present.
I just stepped out so that everybody could see the three of you on stage, and I'm glad that we could.
Sree, I just want to say, now that we live in the world of Zoom land, the ability to use a GenderAvenger tally, you just look at your boxes and put in the number of men and the number of women and the number of non-binary individuals, and you can instantly create a pie chart. And if you, it's a public meeting, obviously, but or a webinar, and if you happen to work for the organizer, we have a feature where you can send it anonymously, and your pie chart will come to GenderAvenger, and we will make sure it's a real hashtag, and then we will publish it. So just want to encourage people who are on Zoom all day or other platforms to use the tally to keep the organizers of these now public events that are virtual honest.
So let's talk about that. This is the GA tally, the GenderAvenger tally. It's right on the front page. How does this work? It's available on your browser as a desktop app or as on iTunes or on Android. So I'm just going to click on the browser app. So walk me through this, please, as I go to the right version. 1 second. I'm just going to, it just popped over, and here we go. All right.
So you can hit count who's present or count who's talking. We also have a feature where you can time who's talking. So we can do this call. How many women? There are 3 women on the call. There's 1 woman of color, there's 1 man, and there's 1 non-binary person. Then you hit submit. Then you can put in the name of it, which is Sree's COVID-19.
Sure. Yep. Okay, GenderAvenger episode, right? So you also want to be careful about the different episodes.
Yeah, though I think it's going to be too long.
Okay, let's see what we do. Sree, we'll try this. We'll all learn together what is possible, and then
your hashtag.
I have the worst hashtag in the world. Okay, and then I hit submit.
There you go, and submit a chart.
You want to make a photo? Okay.
Well, we'll make a chart because otherwise you have to take a photo, and there you go. And you can instantly now share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. You can download it for Instagram. You can send it by email to your friends, or you can send it anonymously.
So the test here for me would be not just this episode where we have 3 women representing GenderAvenger, but what do those numbers look like on a daily basis? But before we get to that, just to go back to this, so anyone can do this. It is anonymous if you choose to have it be so. It doesn't have to go anywhere, right? You could just give this to your HR team and say, look at this, if you want to do it quietly. You don't have to make a big fuss about it if you don't want to.
That's a really good point.
And then I do want to show everybody, we've been, partly because of my working with Gina and everyone, my awareness of these issues is at a hyper pitch. And so we started counting women day 1. And our very first guest was a woman. And you can see out of 281 guests, we're 158 women. That is not enough of a ratio. It's still obviously over 50%, but we'd like to keep sending that higher. What are some of your suggestions for folks who say, well, we can't find women who could talk about these issues? There are some issues that people can't find folks for. Do you help find them? Do you help source guests? Talk about that.
Well, there's you can always find something on the internet or find someone on the internet. What I've seen from social media is that a lot of conference organizers will say, I don't have women on the panel. I'm sorry, I couldn't find them. And we have actually an excuses blog to kind of stamp those out. We can help facilitate crowdsourcing where to find these awesome experts. Throwing up a tweet, and then, we'll at some of the other accounts that do stuff like this too, and crowdsource and say, here are the people. There are sometimes for medicine, for tech, for machine learning, for the ones that were like, are there women there? Like, there are handles on Twitter specifically catered to finding women speakers and women experts and non-binary speakers and experts as well. So you can use Twitter, right? At us. If you're like at a loss and you can't find someone, at GenderAvenger, we will help you out. We can help crowdsource that information. And then also, I would say, go to LinkedIn, right? And do a general search on LinkedIn. That's another way to find experts that are not in your own personal network. And then I'd say get a little bit creative. Where are the spaces where there's overlap in one industry and another? Those are also places where you can find those diamonds in the rough, or those, really niche people that you're like looking for that are outside of just, this is a white dude who talks about this for the last 40 years of his life.
One thing we say, Sree, is the reason we don't supply the names. There are two reasons. One is who's ever the organizer probably has the largest contact list of the planet within their industry. But two, if they don't do it, they don't learn to do it.
I love that. I love that. Let's look at some of these excuses. And you have this excuse section. And the excuse given comes from a woman who was asked by a male organizer to respond. You're kidding. His response is that you should make the excuse. Number 11, there just weren't any women who met our criteria. There is something wrong with your criteria. Overall, we have lots of special programming for women. Well, la-di-da. Well, I got the tone right, but okay, how about this? Excuse number 6, 23% is good because women make up less than 30% of the workforce, or studies show that 30% makes a big difference. All the more reason to feature women to show they are welcome, and just think what 40 or 50% would do. They weren't on the publicity list, but there were a lot of women present. Present is not the same as presenting. Great lines here. I love this. You guys must have had real fun putting this together. Excuse number 8, our president is a woman and she opened and closed the event. Nice try. So you're talking across the spectrum, up and down. People must participate and be given an opportunity. Vandana has linked already to the tally tool so that people can use that. And Rose says, here's the answer. She has 1,700 women on the women to follow list that Stacy Kratz has put together. Hey, kiddo. So you just go to #women to follow. You'll find awesome women who you can invite and to participate. Paulo says, yes, men have to be willing to lease their privilege to those without it. Ellen says, and you need people of different religions. Everyone brings something to the table. And this is an issue, the manel issue, I think, is there throughout the world. In some other places, what you mean by minority or person of color is, of course, different. In India, plenty of manels, everyone's of color. So then you look for other ways of identifying minorities within India who need to be featured, who need to speak, who need to be given an opportunity. Look at this. Someone saying, good boy says we need women more than men. I thought with the, I was going, my instinct was, oh, that name is of some male chauvinist, but good boy, I hope means the dog, right? I think that's a reference to the dog. Good boy is in the dog. And so the dog says we need more women than men. Rajan says all genders are needed in this fight for inclusivity. And I think that is really important. We'd love to get more thoughts. Folks, tell us what you think of this issue and how you've encountered it, what it has meant in your life. We're going to have another 15 minutes or so. Donnell says live from New York. And Samir says, great content. Our society requires such expression of thoughts. Love from India. So there you are. You are having an impact in India right now. Vandana says, we really need to improve religious representation and caste representation in India. That is a big issue there. Now, one of the things you said is there's a spot for binary, folks who identify as binary. Now, how do people know, people who may not understand the issues, how do they find folks who are binary? Any thoughts on that?
Is that for me?
Yeah, sure.
For non-binary individuals, it's not always obvious who we are. So I usually self-declare. Some people don't feel safe self-declaring. So in that case, then they're not counted. If people in their bios on conference speaker lists list themselves as trans or non-binary, then they'll be counted that way. But yeah, it relies on public declaration.
And so is there some, just like there is women to follow, are there lists that people can go to for speakers who are trans, who identify as non-binary, that people can access?
You know, I don't know. And this is actually something I should dig up. I'm really curious. I'd also like to get on that list.
Exactly. That's one of the first things you do. You make the list and you put yourself on top of it. And you'll be found. This is, I mean, I've got to say, as a 50-year-old man, I have a lot of blind spots. And one of the, I'm very open-minded and know a lot about the gender issues. I know a lot about racial issues, not enough. I'm learning. But this is, I think, of my generation and above. It's something that we were never exposed to in the way that we are today. My children are much more conscious and are able to be much more thoughtful about this. So it's something that I want to learn. I want to learn more about. And without being offensive to anyone, what are some ways to learn, Alan, so that those of us who want to be allies? I ask this of Black folks all the time. How can we ask this of Amber when she was on our show with her daughters? How can we be allies of African Americans? How can we be allies of the non-binary?
That's a really good question. I'm actually close to you in age, and so growing up, there wasn't.
Sorry, can I say, without being offensive, that it doesn't look that way?
Well, thank you.
My mother is always telling me to color my hair.
Gray is beautiful. Gray is beautiful. Yeah, I'm close to you in age. And so when I was growing up, there wasn't the language available for me to even describe myself to myself, let alone come out of any closets I was in. And it was really confusing. And so coming into this time where there is language, like the use of the word non-binary, that trans people are so much more visible and so much more vocal, especially on Twitter. Twitter is a blessing if you want to be an ally. My biggest piece of advice, if you want to be an ally, is follow trans and non-binary people. You can search hashtags, see who those people are following. There's a lot of very political people, really funny people, really creative people, just like in any other group. And it'll just open up your mind. You'll see them more than sometimes if you're not acclimatized, people's appearance or behavior or values or ideas can seem shocking to you. But once you listen to them, you realize that we're all pretty much the same. And I know that's a really old stereotype, but we really are. We're really all the same. And you'll find yourself aligning with trans and non-binary people more than you disalign with them.
One thing Alan asked us to do, which we did, was now on our site. It's almost incorporated into our logo. It states, I hope I get the statement exactly right, GenderAvenger.
I see it here. I'll pull it up. It's right here. It says GenderAvenger affirms that trans women are women.
Right. And if you have a website or if you're an organization, I think you send a message, as Alan pointed out. If we state that, then it's clear as to what our values are and what we believe equity and inclusivity is about.
And Rajan says, I like the trend of various people declaring their preferred pronouns. I hope it continues and gets bigger. I think that is, I think it picked up a lot in college campuses, and students were asked to declare that if they wished. If you're watching right now, this is our conversation. Here are the Twitter handles of Gina and Amber and Alan. Please follow them on Twitter. Please find them and follow them on Twitter. And of course, at GenderAvenger itself, or herself, I guess, GenderAvenger. And one of the things that I wanted to just reflect on is that in hiring, so we're talking about public speaking, in hiring, there was a great effort made in America to remove all gender references, age references in resumes, right? You might remember this, where In India, it was certainly common to have your father's name, or because a lot of people have the same name, it would be completely common to have your marital status, your father's name, all of that in what was called your bio data or your your resume. It was completely normal. When I came to America as an adult, I had lived here as a kid. When I came back to America, as an adult, I noticed that there was a lot more blind type, trying to be blind as much as possible. And then over time, people started, with this awareness, trying to show. And one of the things I know that happened is that for Black journalists, for example, putting in and identifying themselves as members of the National Association of Black Journalists or the South Asian Journalists Association was a way to telegraph that. Are there still people in HR and others who are trying to have this blind applications so that they're not, or is it now that everybody understands the value of having a diverse workforce and they seek them out? I know that for a long time, LinkedIn's main recruiter version didn't have photographs for that reason. In India, for example, you'd attach a photograph to every job application. When you come to America, that was a no-no back then. Thanks to LinkedIn, now it's so common. So who can talk a little bit about that?
I don't know the answer, but I do think, if I'm understanding what our world is like, unfortunately, it's a two-edged sword. I identify who I am, and there's a set of people, not in my case, I'm a cis white woman, but who have a reaction to who I am that may limit my options rather than, make them more robust, because of the unconscious and conscious bias we have. So I think it's a complicated question, but I look to my younger team members here to respond.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think, to Gina's point, it is a double-edged sword. I think that there's a far more conscious effort in this moment to put equity first. And so in order to put equity first, you have to evaluate the team that you have. And if it's, generally all white or generally mostly male, then you have to seek out difference. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, you do need people to self-identify unless their name gives away, you perceive the kind of person that they are. I personally think that it's great to put in those markers to let people know who you are, because that's a part of that's part of your story. That's part of what makes you the wonderful person that you are with the experiences that you have. So hopefully we continue to evolve in this direction, but we also need to evolve the ecosystems that do not discriminate based on assumptions of who a person is. So it's twofold, right? It's not just everybody self-identifies who you are. It's like we also need to change the infrastructure and HR to be more equitable as well, and less biased.
Let's ask Alan that question.
I know that in like orchestras, and I can't remember which orchestra first did this, but it used to be pretty much orchestras were all male, and one particular orchestra decided to have completely blind auditions. They didn't know if they were male, female, non-binary, what age they were, what race they were, they didn't know their names. And so people could just audition and be judged on the basis of their music. And immediately, orchestras that started incorporating this way of hiring, women became like 50% of orchestras. Suddenly that bias was removed. It's not that women can't play instruments, it's that people have these unconscious biases that they don't know they're acting on. And so when you remove what visibly triggers your bias, you don't make decisions based on it. But again, that's the double-edged sword. If you really want to include, people of color and the trans and non-binary people and women, you want to make sure that they're there. You do want to see the names and whatnot. So,
yeah, and that's obviously a change that's happening. And Jonathan says a good place to start with non-binary reference is the old Handbook of Non-Sexist Writing, a classic. I've not heard of that, and I will look for that. Vandana says, here's an article on how blind auditioning can counter unconscious biases, and that's what you were talking about. and it's good to know that. So let's very quickly see what else is on the website that we should know about in terms of what is available for people to use and the tools again. So let's go to the toolkit. There's a tally app. There's the pledge, action alerts, the stamp of approval we talked about. There are the various blog posts that you write, the excuses toolkit, which I love. You've got a store where people can buy merch. And then let's talk about support. This is really important. So the merch is one way to support, but let's talk about donations. How are you getting funded? What can people who are watching right now do as they're thinking about supporting nonprofits in this difficult time?
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Sree. We only take contributions from individuals and charitable foundations. We take no contributions from corporations, in large part because we can't follow what they do. We can't make sure they're living by our principles. So what would be great if people can go on to www.GenderAvenger.com, hit the donate button. You can give monthly, which is wonderful, whether it's $5 or $25 a month. If you happen to have a connection to a foundation that is interested in gender issues and gender equality, I am ready. We are really looking to expand dramatically next year. And so it comes at a perfect moment because in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be sending out an appeal to say, it is time for Gender Avenger. We have a great platform. We did a look called the Futures Report at our foundation, found it was very strong. And I am hoping that when we go into 2021, I'll have a new leader and that we will be able to take this team and give them even more resources to exponentially grow the community and its impact.
Well, we wish everybody who can afford it. We know it's a difficult time, but you're saying
it's a hard time. We understand that.
But look at that, just $5 a month for a year. That's not a lot. In New York, you want to buy you a cup of coffee, but you could support this kind of global initiative with the support. And I'm bad at math, but I was trying to do the math of $5 a month for 5 years, what that entitles, what that comes to. But everybody, if you can afford to support, or if you know somebody who can afford to support, tell them about Gender Avenger. Introduce them to organizations. Introduce them to there are lots of organizations that do want to help folks who are focusing on gender issues. And the best part is at this time when people are also focused, rightly so, on racial inequality, Gina and the entire team have focused on that also as a priority. So by supporting Gender Avenger, you are able to make sure that that voices of women of color are also elevated, not just women, but women of color. And Rajan is doing the math for me, and he says $60.
That's great, and you can send it to info@GenderAvenger or Gina@GenderAvenger. And one thing to know as you think about it is I have from the very beginning, we have always paid our bloggers. I've always felt very strongly that we shouldn't take advantage of people who work on something on our behalf. And a $300 donation compensates a blogger for us. So that it doesn't have to be. Though we would love it if it were $30,000. There are donations that add up that are really helpful to the work we do.
One of the things that I'd like to get before we go and let you get back to your day is, are there industries that are better about this than others? And are there industries where you would like to focus your attention because of the sense of conferences that aren't, I don't know if you've done this and not to put you on the spot, but do you have a sense, any of you, conferences or topics or industries that are better or have evolved more? Can you think of any?
What do you think, Alan? Can you think of any that have evolved?
Well, we really came for CSS a couple of years ago. CES, sorry.
Yeah.
The big tech show that happens every year in Las Vegas. And they kind of had to be dragged kicking and screaming, but they eventually got more women on that speakers list. So, it's not people don't always greet this with a really, they're not really excited about it. But the people that go to those conferences and the people who follow those conferences get excited about it, which is why the word got out about CES and they got more women speakers in. And so I'm hopeful for tech. It hasn't been notably very balanced with people of color or women, but it'll get there slowly. And so I'm seeing improvements there.
I like your optimism. That's great. I'll just show folks one thing that I tried this year at the beginning of the year, and GenderAvenger was very nice to write about it. I decided to only follow women on Twitter for the first few days, just to not just follow, because obviously I was already following people, but I decided I would only tweet and retweet women for 24 hours. And that became 48 hours, and that became a week. And then I would only follow new accounts or newly follow women, whether they existing accounts or new accounts. And my entire outlook changed. That was this year. By doing that, because I realized in every industry, there are so many women that we're not getting a chance to see. And even so-called male industries or male-dominated industries, talk about oil and gas or security, national security, so many great women who you can follow. And we don't just mean, Condi Rices of the world, but people who are doing the work today in these institutions was fantastic. So I learned a lot, and I recommend that to everyone as something you can try. And then the other thing we did that was new to me and something that we took a risk on was we invited GenderAvenger to audit our conference a couple of years ago. And this was in 2018. And we had 20 men, 25 women, only 6 women of color. So we need to work on that. That doesn't meet I think this was before you did the stamps of approval. So we didn't get a stamp, but you can see here men made up 33% of the group and spoke 36% of the time. We didn't talk about that. You have a way of even tallying how long they speak, which is really interesting. Here, I guess on social, they got the message. Men made up 20% of the group, but men spoke 6% of the time. So I guess that is progress and something we can be proud of. Let's get each of you to give us a final thought, and we'll end here. Alon, would you like to get started?
I'm just really excited that you had us on this show. We can get the word out. We can talk to more people, get more small monthly donors. And I'm really hopeful. I'm seeing already over the 5 years that I've been with GenderAvenger that there are more women speaking at more conferences. And when we first started, people really pushed back, including women. And now I notice that a lot more people are like, hey, I totally see that this is going on. People's eyes are opening up. And seeing that kind of progress so quickly is really exciting.
And that is really great that you've been able to do that. Remind us where we can find you and follow your work, Alon.
I'm at Schmutzie, SCHMUTZIE on Twitter, and you'll find me regularly using the GenderAvenger hashtag. I'm also I'm a blogger and I work online. You can find my work at alan.works.
Alan.works. Okay, I like that. Thank you very much. And you have to explain the handle though. Schmutzie.
Oh, Schmutzie. Well, when I was a little kid, I come from Mennonite people, and the language that they speak is a mixture of Low German, Yiddish, and Dutch. And so my mother would always be wiping my face and telling me I had schmutz on my face, and she jokingly called me Schmutzie one time. And so I took that on as a nickname in the 90s, and it's stuck ever since.
Okay, thank you. Amber, let's go to you.
Yeah, so with GenderAvenger, it's super easy to be a GenderAvenger. Please if you're a man, take the pledge and share that you took the pledge. If you are at a conference, you're sitting here virtually anyway, tally it, share it with us anonymously, get involved with us on social media. We love to elevate what people are sharing on the hashtag. Use the hashtag GenderAvenger. Let us know what's going on in the world around you so that we can continue to work to elevate women and non-binary folks in public spaces, because we need it. We don't just need all women's spaces. We need integrated spaces with everybody talking and sharing together.
And we can't let you go without talking about big news in the household that you are part of. That's your daughter, who is in the New York Times. She was the lead in the article about this phenomenon called Roblox that most people won't know enough about, but young people do, and parents of young people. So go ahead and tell us about Garvey.
So Garvey was in the New York Times yesterday in print, and then the day before online. She is also a mini gender Avenger, so she's kind of taking up this stance of we need more Black girls and non-Black girls of color coding. So she's going to continue her mission of speaking to racial justice in the gaming world, but then she's now going to put a gender lens on it. So we're excited to see what videos she makes after that. But she just kind of talked about, people using digital blackface to try to support Black Lives Matter and how that was not like the best idea. So she has a video explaining that. So I'm excited to see what's next, but that's our article. Super proud.
And there she is coding. All of those are from this. So that is awesome to see, and just really proud to see that you folks are doing this. So that is awesome. I've also, I gave a lecture about digital blackface, and people just aren't familiar with that. And again, that's no excuse. They need to be familiar with that. And we should maybe do a whole episode, and Garvey should come on and talk about it. But let's go now. And by the way, and her Twitter handle is Mom of All Capes, at Mom of All Capes, because superheroes wear capes, and moms of 3 daughters are extra superheroes, right?
Thank you,
Gina.
So Sree, I really want to thank you. I remember when we met. I think it was at the result of my knowing about your pledge, and we had lunch together, and from that moment on, there was a relationship built that has benefited GenderAvenger over and over and over again, both in your personal work and your professional work, and culminating now in this show. But not really culminating, because I know we'll go on and find ways to continue to work together. And I am optimistic that with the team we have, with the awareness that is being built, people like yourself and others who are looking at our world and saying it has to be equitable, it has to be inclusive, we have to have women's experience expressed, along with women of color, non-binary individuals. This has been a learning process for me. And I just want to say I need the next generation and the next generation and the next generation and the generation of my grandchildren to take this on, to move on, to make it so that years from now, GenderAvenger is a celebration, is consistently a celebration. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you. It was an honor to meet you now 2 years ago. And we took this photograph at Taro Lucia Vino, one of these wonderful restaurants we hope survives all this crisis in New York. So it's all coming together. And I said to men, sign the pledge. I will not serve as a panelist at a public conference when there are no women on the panel. I don't know if you've now expanded it about the other wording that we've discussed, but everyone just go to GenderAvenger.com/pledge. And there's a long list you can see there of the people who have signed the pledge, and your name is there. So please participate, and let's make sure there's a lot of attention being paid. We didn't even talk about the other work that these wonderful speakers who joined us do, including Gina, who's had an amazing other career before she landed on this part of her journey. So maybe another time we'll talk about those aspects of your work. And so with that, I will let you all go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate all of you and wish you the very best. I want to say, just to let everybody know that anybody can support this. I made a $5 a month pledge, not just pledge, a PayPal donation while running the show after a lot of speaking. So it took 60 seconds for me to do while running the show, while talking to them. So it is really possible. There is no excuse, just as there's no excuse for an all-male panel. So it was very modest donation, but everyone should make whatever support they can. Just tell people about Gender Avenger. That will benefit them a lot as well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye. And thank you all for watching. Before we go, we're going to do what Kimberly Crenshaw asked us to do. I asked her, how can I be an ally of Black folks? And she said, say their name, say her name. And I would have actually asked our guests to join us to say their names, but the print that we use, as you'll see in a second, when I read these names, it is so tight that I know that it is so small that it'll be very hard for them. Even I, when you'll see, I'll be right up against the screen trying to read those. So I'll fix it for the future. If any of our guests want to join me in saying their names, I would obviously welcome that. So that's what I was told by Kimberly Crenshaw, the Columbia professor who coined the term intersectionality. And I asked her, what can we do? And she said, say their names. Before that, let me remind you what we have coming up this week. We have fabulous shows. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow is the Hidden Genius Project, which trains and mentors Black male youth in technology creation, entrepreneurship, and leadership skills to transform their lives and communities. We're doing it at 8:30 Eastern time so that we can catch Kamala Harris's presentation at the Democratic National Convention. And we didn't even talk about Kamala Harris and what it means that she has been made the pick for Joe Biden on this episode. And then on Thursday at noon, Trump versus U.S. intelligence agencies. I never thought I would ever write a sentence like that about an American president, but you will meet Robert Draper, who wrote this week's New York Times Magazine cover story, Unwanted Truths Inside Trump's Battles with U.S. Intelligence Agencies, with his own intelligence agencies, noon Eastern, this coming Thursday. Please join us. You can find all our archives on youtube.com/Sreenet. And now I will say her name. This is from the Say Her Name report. As you hear these names, some of them you've heard of. What about the names you've not heard of? What about their stories? Breonna Taylor, Tatiana Jefferson, Charlena Siobhan Lyles, Corinne Gaines, India Kager, Sandra Bland, Alexia Christian, Maya Hall, Megan Hockaday, Janisha Fonville, Natasha McKenna, Tanisha Anderson, Aura Rosser, Shanique Proctor, Michelle Cousseau, Pearlie Golden, Gabriela Navarez, Yvette Smith. Again, think of how many of these stories you've heard. Renisha McBride, Miriam Carey, Chaim Livingston, Kayla Moore, Shelley Fry, Melissa Williams, Shalana Weldon, Alicia Thomas, Chantel Davis, Charmel Edwards, Rekia Boyd, Cherise Francis, Ayanna Stanley Jones, Tarika Wilson, Catherine Johnston, Alberta Spruill, Kendra James, Latanya Haggerty, Margaret Laverne Mitchell, Taisha Miller, Danette Daniels, Frankie Ann Perkins, Sanji Taylor, Eleanor Bumpers. And those are just some of the names. How many of them do you know? Thank you for joining me as I read those names today. We're always looking for guest ideas, story ideas. We want more female representation on this show. So please send us your suggestions for people who should be on this show. We'd love to have them participate with us. Just email me, sree@sree.net. Let's once again thank our sponsors for their support. Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, free certification course now available. Also, a big thank you to Nunbelievable, Divinely Delicious Cookies on a Mission. Also, thank you to Hotstar for their support of this show. So, hotstar.com/US, and you can get a $3.75 subscription for these great movies that come out. Sree 2020 is the code, And a reminder that yesterday we did this great session about Beirut and what's happening in Lebanon. And we had Hamid Sino and Farah Siraj with us, and they will be doing their live stream tomorrow at givingloop.org/MCC, or go to really Hamid Sino is one of the biggest rock stars in the world, in the Arab world in particular. Check out Hamid Sino at Really Hamid on Facebook, and you'll see him there. I also have a workshop that's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Terrific tips from a workshop format. Beatrice Fry of the UN Peacekeeping Group, Teek Milan from GLAD, formerly of GLAD, and Dante Licona of the International Federation of Red Cross and formerly of WHO. You can see the information there on how to get a ticket, and we would love to see you participate. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon. One last thing is that you can always get an alert when we are live. If you grab your phone and get this QR code, what this is an alert, a gentle alert on WhatsApp when we are live. You will not be added to a WhatsApp group, just a gentle alert when we're live. So if you don't understand how this works, just email me and I can add you as well. So thanks very much, everybody. Super grateful to all of you and looking forward to being in touch and seeing you all